there was an inability to make the boy into what he needed to be to function on his own. And you see that a lot with raising boys, where they need their moms early on, and they need that nurture, and they need that motherly support, that motherly touch. But moms cannot make boys into men.
I know predators, and those are predators.
Acknowledge return command.
What are they saying?
They want me to come with them.
Tell them you're already home.
I am already home, thank you.
You do not belong here. This is a wilderness.
And I am a wild robot.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Watch Well podcast. My name is Parker, and this is my co-host, Nick. And we get a drum roll. Nick, how was your week?
You know the awkward part about that question? It's not my answers. You probably think it's my answers. It's not my answers. Do you know what the awkward part is?
No, I don't.
It's always more than a week since the last time we've done this. So, like, in my head, I'm thinking about all of the time that's passed since we've been in a room, you know, virtually or together to do an episode. But I'm doing well. So as we record this is February, and so the end of the year was kind of rough. It's been a while since we've recorded anything together, but yeah, doing well. Excited to do this episode. Just you and I again. This will be the first time in a long time that it's just been you and I.
I love our guests, and it's so fun when we have somebody new come on the podcast, but there's just a special place in my heart to just get back together with you and talk about a movie. Like, it's just, It brings back old memories, and now we're doing it on the podcast. But before we go any further, I don't want to forget. So we want you guys to know that there is an event coming up that we're going to be at. It's called the Dangerous Friends Conference, put on by Clear Truth Media. It's happening March 13th and 14th in Monclova, Ohio. So we're going to be there. There's going to be tons of speakers. The Blazes, Steve Dace is going to be there. Rosario Butterfield, Jamie Bambrick, Stephen Whitlow. I'm trying to remember them all. Seth Gruber, Michael Foster, John Roseman, I believe, is going to be there. So it's going to be a great time. They're calling it the Dangerous Friends Conference because when you are friends and you are post-denominational, it's dangerous to be friends. We unify around primary doctrine. We discuss, not divide, over secondary doctrine. So there's a lot of discussion. So dangerousfriends25.com is where you can get your ticket. And if you use WatchWell25, one word, two capital W's, WatchWell25, you can get $25 off your ticket. Come to Dangerous Friends in March. Come see us. We will have a podcast booth there. You may even find yourself on a Watch Well episode. You can come check us out. Maybe talk about a movie. Get a free t-shirt. We're going to have t-shirts there. We're going to stickers. And it's going to be a great time. You're going to come meet a lot of fun people. A good time of fellowship with other believers. So, Dangerous Friends 25, March 13th and 14th. We hope to see you there. Nick, let's talk about a movie.
Let's talk about a movie.
Go ahead. Let's do a rundown. And I kind of feel like I'm forgetting something, but I think it's because we're so used to having guests on.
Yeah, we're used to introducing the guest, and we're used to letting them kind of take control of everything because that's how we do it with guests.
That's so funny. So go ahead. Let's do the rundown, and then I want to talk about, after we do the rundown, I want to talk about ratings.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So we got The Wild Robot. That's what we're talking about. This is a new animated movie that came out, I think it was in October of this past year. Director is Chris Sanders. I'll skip this part for now, but so I'll just give you a quick synopsis. The Wild Robot, directed by Chris Sanders, is an animated film based on a children's book of the same name by author Peter Brown. It is about a robot named Roz that is shipwrecked on a deserted island. Roz must learn to adapt to its new surroundings as she becomes the adoptive mother of an orphan goose named Bright Bill. So what are you thinking about ratings? So this is a PG-rated movie. I'm not sure if that's what you were getting at, or if you were talking about like IMDb and things like that.
No. I was talking about the PG, and so full disclosure, I actually watched this with both of my boys. So for those that don't know, the audience members listening, maybe I have a 4-year-old, and actually I should start saying 5. He's 5 on Monday, and Riker will be 2 in March. So we'll say 5 and a 2-year-old, and we watched them, and we watched this movie. Did you watch this with Lincoln?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I watched this with my she was 7 at the time that we watched it. Yeah.
Okay, so she was 7.
But she's 7 now, but
what was her reaction to the movie? I'm interested because when we watched it, me and both of my boys, we watched it. Ronan was just engulfed in it. He was engulfed. But Riker was, and I know he's 2. Some people in the comments might ridicule me, like 2-year-old or whatever, like they're scared of everything. But he really liked a lot of the movies, and Riker even laughed at some of the scenes. He thought some of them were funny, but I actually thought that it was kind of a scary movie for kids, for PG.
Yeah. So we recently watched The Fellowship of the Ring, and there were parts in The Fellowship of the Ring that my daughter thought was too scary. She made it through just fine, but then when we tried to watch The Two Towers, which obviously that's PG-13, and she's young, but Lord of the Rings is kind of still at least appropriate. She was way too scared, and we had to turn it off, and we couldn't go any further with The Two Towers. So put that on hold. But with The Wild Robot, I agree with you that there's some visuals, there's some intense action and things where a kid could get really scared. Link didn't. She did not get scared during this. She really enjoyed it. I don't think it's her favorite, but she really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, they just did. For an animated kids movie, I thought, and this is not me being soft, but I thought the intensity of the thunderstorms were pretty scary for kids.
Yeah.
I really thought that.
Yeah, they really they don't hold back.
No.
On that stuff. They don't hold back on it's not the very end, but near the end when the ship comes to get Roz, basically. Like they don't hold back on any of that. And I'm not surprised, I guess, that some of it could be a little too intense or scary for a younger kid. But it's kind of like what we always say when we do this. It really depends on the kid, right? It depends on what they have a tolerance for. Because I remember, to take it back to Lord of the Rings, when we watched the Lord of the Rings series with our boy, who's now 16, but at the time was much younger, he wasn't scared at all. Like he was in it completely, and he was probably 7 or 8 years old at the time. And I would imagine it'd be something similar for this one, where a 5-year-old might really love it, but then another 5-year-old might think it's kind of maybe a little bit too intense.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that I was a little shocked, but then I would also say that if it was rated PG-13, I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, I mean, it would be rated PG-13 if it were real people. Like, if everything stayed the same and it were live action, it would definitely be PG-13.
What do you think about the content? Do you think it's a PG? Like, I'm just really flirting with this idea that it should have been a PG-13 movie. Not because it was super crazy bad, but I thought it really rode that line of, I mean, when you think of our movies as kids, like Fox and the Hound or Bambi, I know a lot of our childhood probably was wrapped up in Disney movies, but do you remember National Treasure? No, not National Treasure. I'm sorry.
I was going to say I was not a kid when National Treasure came out.
Treasure Planet.
Yeah, I do.
Is that a PG movie?
I think so.
Is it PG?
I'd have to look it up, but
or is it PG-13?
I think it is. Yeah,
I'm just thinking about this now because I'm relating the intensity of the Wild Robot to that movie because I remember watching that being younger and thinking the same thing where, man, this could be kind of scary for a kid, watching it back as an older person. I can't remember if it's PG or PG-13. It's probably PG.
Yeah, it is PG. I just looked it up. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just curious about that.
So I would say,
go ahead.
I think that's a pretty good comparison. Not in terms of story, but it's not a similar story, but it is a similar tone.
Right.
The seriousness of some of it, you could consider that similar. So yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
Hey guys, real quick, I wanted to update you on something. So we've got our new merch site up and running. Finally, it's been a labor of love. We've got designs back there for hats, hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. We've got a blanket back there so that you can grab the person you most enjoy watching films with. You can cuddle up under the Watch Well blanket. You can watch well together with some popcorn. Head on over to vindicatedproductions.com. Check out the new Watch Well site. Buy some merch. Support the podcast so that we can keep bringing you guys really, really good content to ultimately combat the passive consumption of entertainment and bring a more complete worldview to everybody that enjoys movies. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. So then content. Let's talk about the content of the movie. Do you think the content deserved a higher rating? I mean, there was a lot of like sarcasm and like death. And did you take that as comedic? Did it land for you as comedic and not necessarily that big of a deal? Or did it land like, man, this is kind of heavy for a kid?
Yeah, it definitely flirts with that line of what's too heavy, but I don't necessarily know that the G, PG, PG-13 are. I don't know if that whole system is designed to reflect that all that well.
No, I think it's more of just a general guideline. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, if you just look at it as just the general premise, a parent should watch this if a kid is going, like, you should have parental guidance, then it's probably appropriate. Because I think PG-13, might be a little too, it would take it a little bit too far.
Okay.
In terms of, just because I think a kid younger than 13 could watch this without a parent.
Yeah. I mean, I would say yes, but it still seems. Yeah, I would probably agree.
But then if you compare it to like 80s movies, Back to the Future is PG.
Yeah.
But I guess, the other side of that is that was before the PG-13 rating existed.
Right. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah. The other one I would compare it to, more recent. Have you seen Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
No, but I'm pretty sure that came from. I'm pretty sure they worked on the same movies.
Probably.
I think it was
probably
It produced by the same company that did that movie, or at least Wild Robot. In this, I think it was the same.
Yeah, and it's also really good, but. You mentioned a lot of death in the Wild Robot. I mean, that's the entire story of Last Wish is all about death.
Yeah,
like death is even the villain of the story.
And you can call me a little sensitive. I'm sure somebody will break me over the coal a little sensitive. But it really kind of bothered me. It really kind of bothered me, not necessarily the sarcasm and related to death, but how nonchalant the kids were talking about it. That really kind of hit me. I was like, maybe I don't know if I like that.
Do you have an example that you can recall?
It was the possum and the mother possum and the kids, and I know that there was some of it that was wrapped in comedy because when possums are scared, they play dead.
They play dead.
But the kids were just like, it was like again and again and again. And it kind of pushed it past, like, okay, the joke is there. Like, what, is there anything else that they're like, and then the mom was like, there was one moment where you heard this snarl. She was like, oh, I have like 3 or however many, 5 kids. And then, and it's like 6 or whatever. I have 5 now. And it was like this, like,
just a joke.
A joke. But it was like, man, it was kind of cold.
Yeah.
For like 5, 6, and 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But also reflective of nature, right?
Right.
That's the way animals would go about, oh, that one's gone.
But this is the argument that I was having in my head. I'm not saying all one way or all the other. I was like, they really did a good job writing that line to where it made it difficult to decide too far or it's comedic and it lands well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably, when I first saw it, I went in theaters, and I think I probably took it more comedically.
Yeah.
Less...
Because it is funny. Like, it is funny.
Yeah. It's a funny line, for sure. So this movie is nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It's also nominated for Best Original Score, which I think is pretty rare for an animated film to be nominated in that category. I could be wrong about that, and I might be making that up. I'm not sure. But then it's also nominated for Best Sound. It's been it was nominated and won the Saturn Award for Best Animated Feature, and it was nominated for a whole bunch of other prominent awards and award shows. So then, in addition to that, it's got an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Its critic score on Rotten Tomatoes is 97%. Its audience score is 98%. So, like, this movie is universally praised. So my question to you is, do you think it's deserving of that level of praise? Like, just, it seems like everyone who has seen it and every review of it is glowing with praise for the film. Do you think it's worthy of that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have some issues with it, but they're not big enough to overpower the movie. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it with my kids. I really did. I enjoyed the movie. I would probably give it an 80 or 90% score.
So did your oldest really like it? Like,
yeah,
he said he was into it.
Yeah.
He was really engrossed in it.
I will say it's the first time he's ever looked at me, and he looked at me, and I was like, "What's wrong, dude? Like, you good? Do you like it?" He goes, "This is a long movie."
How long is it? I can't remember.
I don't know, but it felt like it was 2 hours long.
Yeah. There's a point where you think it's over, but it's not over.
Not any. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like a good bit left.
Yeah. I remember feeling that way when I watched Casino Royale, the Bond movie, for the first time. I was like, oh, this is wrapping up. No. And then it's like a whole nother movie after that point.
Yeah.
So this is kind of similar in that way.
I do think that this is an instance of where if you made the movie shorter, it would have been even better.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they could have cut like 25 to 30 minutes out of the film, and it would have been just as good.
Anything particular in mind?
No, I just nothing like, oh, cut that out because it's bad. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant cut the montages. There were a few of those that I think you could have cut. I just think that you could have just been a little bit more efficient with your time, and it wouldn't have taken away from any of the emotion that they were trying to pull, or it still would have been just as good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe right after Bright Bill leaves to fly away, right, with the others, and Roz goes back to, I don't know, would you call it the base?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I think maybe some of that maybe could have been shorter, but I'm not really sure where it would cut, because some of those montages with the music, like the scenes are just so visually nice.
Yeah.
That it just looks like I could just sit and look at it.
Yeah.
Because they look really nice.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
Yeah.
The animation was incredible.
Yeah.
Like
the animation
grade
is
A.
absolutely, yeah, it's beautiful animation. Yeah.
But I can't like sit here and think of like a particular scene that was like, oh, if you cut that out because it was bad, it would have made the movie better. No, I'm saying the movie is good. You could have just cut some of the scenes down so they wouldn't, and not even that they felt drawn out, but just cut them down a little bit so that the movie as a whole was shorter. And I mean, even with kids' attention spans, I think it would have been fine. But it did seem like a movie and a short film as you were watching it. It was like you had this movie, and then it's like, and then it was like it cut to like the animals, and they were in the house, and then she saved them all, and from the winter, it's like this whole other plot, like at the end. So I mean, I just am thinking, I'm seeing it back in my head. I think it's interesting. What was your, let's just jump in. What was your main takeaway? Because there were so many that were coming to my head during the movie.
If I had a few, but if I was just going to say what the main thing is. So I'm going to try to do this like almost in like asking you questions about it and see if you end up similar to where, and you may have already seen some of this, but what makes Roz a mother and not a father? Because she's a robot.
That's a good question. I hadn't thought of this. I would say maybe I don't know. That's a good question. I think you may have stumped me on the first one. I think that's a really good one. I want to go straight to like nurturing and you know the types of qualities that a mother would portray. But now that I'm thinking back, outside of a female voice, the analytical and like we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this is more like how, generally speaking, a man thinks.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm pretty sure during the movie they intentionally make it clear, right? And it's stated multiple times that Roz is Bright Bill's mother, right?
Yes.
They state it. So if they never, so like just try to imagine that there's no references to mother and there's no references to father, but everything else about the movie stays the same. Would you still assume that Roz is a mother?
Yeah, that's really hard. I would say you would probably say parent, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure people would even do that. I think that they would just. I honestly think that they would just go off the voice, and it's because it's a female voice. Right. They would just assume.
Yeah, and I think you might be right in that, but I think there's also something to the fact that one thing this movie does incredibly well is it starts to make you feel a connection to an inanimate object that should, you know, a robot should have like no feelings and things like that. But throughout the story of the movie, it makes you start to feel a connection to Roz. And I think one of the things that it does really well is there's some very unique features, not all of them, and I think there's probably some like crossover and some between mother and father and what, roles and things like that. But I think there's some very unique features of a mother that are very prominent in the film that even if they never stated it, I still think the viewer would view Roz as a mother, even if she had an electronic voice. Because I think you're right that you hear feminine voice and you're probably you're going to make that assumption. And if they would have made it a more masculine, deeper voice, then you would make the assumption the other way. But even with that, I think there are some unique features about motherhood that is portrayed by Roz. Just for an example, when a son goes off to college and is getting ready to leave, both parents would typically struggle, right? Both parents would typically be sad, but which parent typically is the one trying to hold on to their baby? Which is the parent that would typically be the one trying to keep them as their little boy? Right? It's the mother. And that's portrayed really well in this film. How is it that Roz saves and rescues the other animals in the forest from that huge massive storm and what's going on there in the forest? How does Roz save all of them?
She makes a home.
Right, exactly. And it shows hospitality, inviting them into that home that she's made. There's just so many uniquely, and I think what that does is it proves that regardless of what direction our world is going in terms of feminism and masculinity and motherhood and fatherhood, when you see what a mother is, you know it.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. See, I didn't get that at all. I love that.
Yeah, and it's so evident right there. And you know what, and even more specifically than that, when you see a good mother, a strong mother, you know it. And we all know exactly what attributes though that entails. And it's not the same attributes as a strong father.
Right.
Or else we would be like, oh.
Okay, so now let's transition to the strong father, because there was an inability to make Bright Bill what he needed without the help of a male figure.
Mm-hmm.
And you found that in a couple of different places. You found that in, I'm going to forget his name. It was Longneck, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
I think it was Longneck, that goose that was just kind of watching and then was like, oh, endurance. You gotta don't let his feet touch the ground until, from sunrise to sunset. I think it was Longbill, right? Or Longneck.
Yeah.
Longneck. And then you also found it in my favorite character, Thunderbolt.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he the Falcon. It was a Falcon, right? Falcon? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he taught him how to fly. So there was an inability to make the boy into what he needed to be to function on his own. And you see that a lot with raising boys, where they need their mom early on, and they need that nurture, and they need that motherly support, that motherly touch. But moms cannot make boys into men. That requires a father. And so even in that would be another example of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. And once you point it out, you see it all through the film.
Yeah. Yeah. We know what a mother's for. We know what a mother does. And when we see those attributes, and especially when we see those attributes lived out well, they're obvious.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? What was your main takeaway?
So I couldn't get this out of my head. So you had this idea of programming, or even early on in the film where it was like, I need to do a task. Like, I'm programmed to do a task. Like it's all about your programming, and in order for her to complete the tasks, Roz had to. What did we see she had to do? They did it kind of interesting where it was off camera. I don't remember a scene where she did it and it was like blatant in front, but it was in passing where she had to. I can't remember the exact terminology, but it was almost like reprogramming herself, or she had to undo or recode her programming in
remember that,
in order to complete the task. So it was almost as if, you have this artificial robot, this artificial intelligence who has a programming, and that programming could be synonymous with the nature of the being, right? That robot. So the robot's nature is not allowing it to complete the task that it needs to complete in that moment. Mm-hmm. And I kept I just kept in my head just playing over like, before we're saved, our sin nature is not allowing us to see the truth. And you have to undergo a reprogramming and a recoding of your head, if you kind of follow the metaphor, in order to see things differently. And that's exactly what happened to our main character, Roz. She couldn't do the task, and she couldn't see things feel things the way that she needed in order for the task to get completed. So she had to rewrite her code and change her nature in order to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the big lie of the film, right? Because in order to truly help yourself, there's nothing that we can do to change our nature. Mm-hmm. We need something.
You can't rewrite your own
code. We
code.
Can't rewrite our own code. We have to look to somebody else that will, regenerate us and rewrite our code in order for us to see the truth. So that's what I kind of got. That's where I went with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're talking about, or what you're essentially comparing that to regeneration, being made new, being born again,
right?
And the rewriting of being changed.
You're being undone from the inside out, so that you can be this new thing. The exchange of heart of stone for heart of flesh. Mm-hmm. You're a new thing once your code or your nature has been changed. But the film doesn't go that extra step. It doesn't communicate that. This is the self-help model. This is the TED Talk, like I can change myself if I just keep working on myself. Mm-hmm. And that's the lie. Like, that's the lie of the film. And this is a great way to bring your kids, for the viewers out there listening, into watching well, like raise them up in that, is like preach to your kids in a good foundation to bring the gospel in and say, look at what this is telling you. The message is that you can fix yourself. And the truth is, we can't. We need Christ to do that. We need to look to Scripture and Christ and His death on the cross, to change us. And I think that's a really good, really good way to do that.
We have to be changed.
Right. Right.
It's not just that we have to change, it's that we have to be changed.
Correct.
In what like that's something that happens to us, not necessarily something we can accomplish or do. But then, one thing that, see what you think about this, and there could be some things that I'm forgetting about the movie. So this might not work after I say it, but once Roz is changed, there's a point somewhere near the end of the movie Or maybe it was the fake end of the movie. I don't when I thought it was
that's
going
right.
to end, but I'm not
like
sure.
ended 3 times.
Yeah, somewhere around in there. There was a point where supposedly Roz went back to like default settings, but then it's kind of revealed no, she never went back to default settings. She still recognizes and sees, she knows who Bright Bill is and all of those things, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like she was almost
at the end in the big ship.
Yeah.
And then she still was able to have her memories even though I remember that. Yeah. I'm with you.
So I guess what I'm saying there is once you've been changed, you don't go back.
Yeah.
Like once
right.
you've been rewritten, you can't just go back to default settings.
Right.
Right.
So you can't lose the change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
But it was a really good way to like talk to the boys about like think this way. And I know it's way over their heads, you know, there might be some pushback like, oh, your kids don't understand. But at least they're getting that at a young age so that they can be primed for you know, bigger things down the road. And you know, it's never too early to teach your kids the truth of the gospel. And so, yeah, I think that's really good. Mm-hmm. I really liked that. I mean, I wish that they went the next step, that there was, I don't know. I go back and forth let me ask you this. Do you think that movies should go that next step, or is that when we get into the whole like Christian movie phenomena where it ends up being bad? Or should they have kept it the same?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to I don't know if I can answer a yes or no because it really depends on how they do it.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Right, like maybe there's, you know, a really strong Christian filmmaker, which this is the only time the person who directed this movie, I'm not really familiar with. I don't know anything about him. So, but maybe there's a really strong Christian filmmaker that could intentionally do that in a way that is still creative and fits the story. But I don't know that I could think of a way to do that, to say, yeah, they should have done this. Right.
Yeah, I know that's a tough question. It's probably not even a fair question, but I wonder if there was a way to like, it'd be super cheesy. I'm just thinking comedically now. It's like, oh, they got this update and it changed the code and now she's able to, like, that would have been stupid. But
yeah,
you know.
but then if you get that update, then it's essentially the villain of the story is the one who has to be right. So then, I don't know. Maybe that's something to explore too. I don't know, but
I guess I was just like running it up, like, because we sit here and we review movies, and sometimes I wonder like are the stories good the way they are, and then we continue to review them. But if we were to change the stories to fit more of our review kind of mindset, does that spill over into the cheesy Christian, you know, type of story that we hate?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to how it's done on an individual basis on like that.
I agree
on a particular film.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think there are certain movies that that wouldn't even necessarily have to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that would change is even the filmmaker would know what their story's actually about, if that makes sense, right? Like, because some movies just reflect all of this stuff so well that you don't need to change anything about it, and all that would change is the awareness of the filmmaker and doing it on purpose. Right. Which I'm sure some films do that, and we might not even necessarily know that it was on purpose. But yes. So it's just hard to really state yes, they should have added a little feature in there like that, or no, I don't know if it's done well, they could have.
I don't even know how they would have added that. I'm just spitballing ideas and kind of going off the cuff at this point. So what did you think about let's talk about the opossum mother.
Okay. You're testing my memory here.
I know, but I just want your general thoughts on that. And I know I watched it this morning because I really thought, like, you talk about mothering well. And I don't, like, go ahead, just give me your opinion on the opossum mother.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of come at it from a comedic. Well, this is probably how an opossum mothers, right? Like, this is probably even better, right?
So stupid when we talk like this. This is probably how a mom. It's like, yeah, opossum.
Yeah. So, if we're talking like personifying that, like the movie does, and making it a person, and then it's not a good thing. But the way, I think it's humorous. I think it's I think it helps the movie to portray it that way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that gets at what you're trying to ask.
No, it doesn't. I just wonder if there was a little bit of like masculinizing moms by being a certain way. I did have that. I did have that thought. It's like, I don't know if there's some gender conformity happening here, or if I was just being hypersensitive to that when I was watching it.
I can't say that that's not the case. I don't remember. So I have not watched this since October, so I could be forgetting some details about exactly what you're talking about, but I don't remember thinking that when seeing it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I watched it this morning, and it's like maybe it was because it was coming from a mom that it was like it just didn't sit right. Like, so maybe that's why I had the original opinions that we talked about earlier in the episode about did it land as comedy when they were talking about the death? Because if a male father figure says that, then it's funny. Mm-hmm. But because a supposed mom or mother says it, then it's like, man, that it's a little weighty.
Yeah, well, yeah. I still took it as comedic because it's a mother, right? Yeah. Especially a mother with a lot more children. I mean, you always hear the jokes, and when you have a lot of kids, it's like, which one are you again? That kind of thing. And,
yeah. So you're telling me I'm being a little sissy? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. You're welcome to say that about yourself. I did not say that.
All right, so
and I don't think that, or else I would say that.
Fair enough. Okay, any other thoughts?
No, not really anything new or different. But one of the other things I wanted to do is just bring it back a little bit to Scripture, and just to, I'm not sure exactly all the demographics of our audience and who listens and who doesn't. I don't know how many moms we have listening, but just to encourage mothers that your influence matters. And yes, you are unique. You do have strengths that are specific to you as a mother, but specifically, I just wanted to read in 2 Timothy chapter 1, Paul writing to Timothy, and he's talking about, what's been entrusted to Timothy, the faith that's been entrusted to Timothy. And what he says in verse 5, as he's talking to Timothy and expressing thanks, he says, "I'm reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I'm sure it dwells in you as well." Just to show that a mother's influence over the faith of her children can still be generational. And when we're talking about parenting, and especially as guys, we tend to, in a lot of the movies we review and a lot of the episodes, we masculinity, fatherhood, and the importance of fathers comes up all the time. And I don't even feel like we need to apologize for that on any level. I think that's good, but I think with this particular film, we just have an opportunity to also encourage mothers in that the generational impact though in a different way in most cases, the generational impact of a good mother who fears the Lord and invests in her children can be just as prominent as a father who does the same. And the way that they carry that out will be unique and different, but the impact is still there, and God uses them for the good of the children and to make that impact. So
Yeah.
because in this we have grandmother, mother, son, right?
Mhm.
All that's generations, and that faith is passed down through generations, and it's grandmother, mother, son, and so I just wanted to.
And you see that in the movie with the legacy, like
Mm-hmm.
he flies off and he thinks that that's the last time he'll ever see her, and then he flies back and is shocked that she's there. And she does another example of what you're talking about. She does exactly what a mom would do. Well, I'm gonna go to the ship now because he found his place and he doesn't need me anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just gonna go do my own thing. So yeah, I think that's really, really good encouragement to moms. I love that you pulled that out because that's not where I went at all. So yeah, thanks for that. Let's sum it up. What do you think?
I really like it. I worth watching.
I agree.
And especially worth watching well. So
That's right.
So watch it well.
Yeah.
Do
you think it's
I would
gonna
actually? What else is?
I don't
what
know
else is nominated in that category?
I'm not sure what else is nominated in that category, but I'm gonna hedge my bet and be like, it's gonna be tough to beat for sure.
It's gonna win because I think there was another one. I think it was the movie that won the Golden Globe for animation. I think it was something called Flow.
I don't know. I don't
like
remember.
a super small budget movie, but supposedly really good. I don't know, but it's about a cat. I don't like cats, so we'll see about that. But
I don't like cats either.
yeah, so
we just alienated all of our audience
all of
members.
yeah,
Cats.
yeah. We don't want cats around here. But I can't say it was the best of the 3 animated movies I saw this year that were released this year that I saw. So I saw Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4 and this one, and I think this was by far the best of the 3.
Yeah.
So in my book, it wins best animated feature. So.
All right. Well, there we have it, everybody. I want to thank you for your time and listening to our conversations and joining us. I want to thank you. We really appreciate your attention, and we want to grow this year. We want to reach more people. So if you could just do us a favor, if you've listened to this far, just share this episode with maybe 1 or 2 people. It's really easy. You could just copy the link in the URL or in the app, and you can just post it in a text message with 1 or 2 other people. It really helps us reach more people. Our goal is 1,500 subs on YouTube this year, and a couple hundred downloads an episode, and we're like really, really close on the downloads. But we can't do the YouTube subs without you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. You listening. We can't do that without you. So if you could just share it with a couple of people, that'd be great. If you're listening on the audio platform, Spotify, Apple, whatever, if you could leave us a review, that would also help. The 5-star reviews helps push us to more people as well. So that would be great. We'd be thankful for that as well. And then we have our merch store, vindicatedproductions.com. Go get yourself a hoodie, a Watch Well, Bringing Death to the Passive Consumption of Entertainment t-shirt like I'm wearing right now. Go check that out in the Watchwell store. We also have the sweatshirts, the Sola by Watchwell sweatshirts. You can get a sweatshirt. You can collect all 5 of them. It says Sola on the front, and then it's got one of the 5 Solas down the arm of the sweatshirt. They're really cool. So check those out. And don't forget about the Dangerous Friends Conference, March 13th and 14th. Go check out all of those speakers. DangerousFriends25.com. You can buy your ticket. Watchwell 25. 2 capital W's, 1 word, Watchwell 25. $25 off your ticket. We hope to see you there to come make more dangerous friends. And with that, don't forget to watch well. We'll see you in the next one.